Starting out as a wizard, don't know what spells that you need to take. Maybe your teachers weren't as good as Harry's. Well, I'm here to help you pick some of the either more common or more useful spells, and then you can decide where you're going to go from there. But stick around as I go through a few levels of the best spells for the Arcane Wizard. Seventh level wizard spells. Force Gauge. Force Gauge is fantastic. It's a great way to lock someone down, lock an opponent down. I've locked down some players with this. It's a reflex, so a lot of your guys may not, or monsters may not be able to evade it that well. Half your PCs probably won't be able to. I've used this specifically on casters and some other stuff. And it's just a pretty good spell. Spell turning. Spell turning is great. 7th level spell. It's personal use, so that's really the only bad thing about it. But it's 10 minutes a level, so it's great when you're walking into a dungeon, or you might have a fight within the next 2+ hours. And it allows you to turn back spells against the target. It's fantastic. I love it. It's another one of those spells that I put on for my BBEGs, my big casters. Spell turning is something that they usually have either as an ability, or if they're a caster, then it's something that I will cast on them myself. By then, late games, your casters are either going to be using something like this, or they're going to be using Errata's Absorption. I really need to get rid of that thing. Plane shift, great. Some people get it a little bit lower in 7th level. You've got your paladin, some of them, they're getting it on 5th level spells. Median gets it super low. Being able to switch to planes. Remember that whenever you switch to planes, you're going to be using a tuning fork that's going to put you onto that plane, so you have to have it attuned. So I usually will give them limited tuning forks, and then my players get to go through the adventure collecting and then trying to attune forks to different locations and planes, so that they don't have to go about getting there again the hard way, which is usually how they get there the first time. But remember, tuning forks, there's not a set price for the different planes. Basic tuning forks for your plane, so Faerun, Galorian, wherever you are, is going to be pretty cheap because you're on the plane constantly. I have these actually being fairly rare, or having them being pricey items whenever I use them in the campaigns, because I want it to be harder to be able to just instantly teleport everything else. They're already going to get things like teleport, and then of course at 7th level they have access to greater teleport, which means there is no range limit as long as you're on the same plane, and you're teleporting to the exact location that you want. So it's one of those things, there's no more chances, there's no more messes with it, and it's one of those things that at this point you have to check your players when it comes to scrying and realize that monsters or NPCs that they are fighting are going to be using things to conceal where they are. Otherwise, your caster is going to scry on them, greater teleport, and everyone's going to just smoke them the first round. Polymorph. Once again, polymorph spells. Greater polymorph is just expanding. You're using B-shaped for 3 alter self. Polymorph is going to be different in Pathfinder, if I didn't cover this with the last one, than it is if you're coming from a game like 5e. 5e, you're running it to where polymorph, oh look, now you're a goat. You're a goat, and that's it. You're just a standard goat. You take some HP, that coat gets removed, you're back to the old self. In this game, polymorph is fantastic in some ways because it allows you to alter your party members or yourself to either get elemental body if you're in certain planes. You get condition immunities when you do things like plant shape, but what it does is it allows you to get these bonuses and you form into the creatures. So there's just going to be some limitations with what you get when you polymorph. Polymorph any object is one of those spells that It is up in the air, but it's an 8th level spell, and it has less limits than before. It's a pretty good spell, especially if you want to take your familiar and turn them into something a little more formidable for fighting. It's a great way to have some fun with. That Baleful Polymorph is one of those spells that I've used against my players, but if you have a purely physical character, if it is not a spell-like ability, so if it's supernatural, and you turn your character into a goat, which I've done this before, they're just a really mean goat. They're not a normal goat. And so, yeah, they're restricted to the number of attacks, and they can't use any spell-like abilities or stuff, but they still have some of their abilities. And with the right class, that can still mean that they can deal some damage. It's made some really great scenes, but if you're going to use Baleful Polymorph against your players, I recommend picking something maybe a little less funny and completely keeps them from being able to fight. A snail's really good, something like that. But Limited Wish, 7th level spell. I don't see this used a whole lot, but it's got its abilities, especially if you're limited with your spells, or if you're psychic or something and you want to be able to have access to some wizard spells that are low level spells. It's pretty good. I put it on there because it's, in the wish line, but I don't see it used a whole lot actually, which is a little different than the actual wish spell. 8th level spells, Maze. Okay, Maze is fantastic. Maze is great. Saving throw, none. Target, 1 creature. Range, close. But you banish subject into an extra-dimensional labyrinth. Each round, on its turn, it may attempt a DC 20 intelligence check to escape the labyrinth as a full round action. So, puts them into another plane, takes them out of the fight. It's great against monsters, as long as it's not a super intelligent one, and it is fantastic against the right player. If the subject doesn't escape, 10 minutes later, it pops back into the exact same location. And that's freeing the subject. You can do things when it comes to leaving the maze or escaping. So on escaping or leaving the maze, the subject reappears where it had been when the maze spell was cast. If this location is filled with a solid object, the subject appears near a space. That's pretty easy to go by. Spells and abilities that move a creature within a plane, such as teleport or dimensional door, do not help a creature escape the maze spell, although plane shift, which we previously talked about, allows it to exit to whatever plane it designated in that spell. So, Minotaurs aren't affected. That's not a big deal. You're probably not going to use this on a lot of Minotaurs, but just for later, make sure Minotaurs doesn't work on them at all. But what that last line means is you cast this on a character, and I've had them argue with me before. This supersedes the previous line. So when they cast plane shift and they want to go to the material plane, they don't come back to the previous location. This is different than this. So if they teleport, that's fine, but they're going to be doing something a little bit, they're going to be doing some traveling to be able to get back to where they were. At least that's how I've always ruled it. Irresistible Dance. Fantastic, funny. We had Karzog in Rise of the Rune Lord defeated by this. Multiple cast. I beefed him up. Took down half the party. On his last leg, Blood Rager and the Shaman. Shaman casted Irresistible Dance. And that was pretty much it. A funny way for him to die and in the campaign. Clone, if you're willing to spend the time, if you have downtime, clone can be great. You're spending months to grow your clones, but if you have the time, either in story or maybe your DM's going to give you some time, this is going to allow you to basically make yourself immortal. You're not going to get all your loot back unless you go back and get it, but it's going to make it so you or your entire party, if you're willing to spend the resources, can come back to life. Mind Blank. This is one of those spells. Subject is protected from all devices or spells that gather information about the target through divination. 8 resistance on saving throws against mind affecting. Mind Blank even foils limited wish, miracle, wish spells. Okay. I use this a lot of the time when it comes to trying to save my big bads, because as previously stated with Greater Teleport, Plane Shift, and everything, it can be a pain unless you're just using demi-planes or something that blocks teleportation into that location, which I do a lot with them too. 9th level spells. Not everyone gets to cast these, but this is what everyone's always waiting on. 9th level. And one of the best spells for 9th level spells is Time Stop. The ability to stop time and then cast spells for 1d4 plus 1 rounds is going to heavily change the tide of battle. What? Okay. Now, so you can't cast things on someone else, but what you can do is you can cast things like delayed fireball. So you can cast 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 delayed fireballs, have them go off whenever this spell stops. So whenever you re-enter into combat, so your round starts back up. Or you can do one thing with this, and you can cast 4 to 6 summon spells, which I've seen happen. I've had a shaman in Rise of the Rune Lords. It was the last fight. She pulled a time stop, followed by 5 rounds of spells, most of which were summons, which kept the rest of her party from having to deal with all the other monsters and opponents that I had, so that they could focus mostly on Karzog. Wish is a great spell. Wish is a great spell. It's Wish. I mean, you can cast a slew of different spells without any kind of issue. You're looking at putting bonuses onto characters, removing injuries, afflictions, reviving the dead. I'm going to keep deleting where I need to have to mess with my nose. Revive the dead. A wish can bring dead creature back to life by duplicating resurrection spell. A wish can revive a dead creature whose body has been destroyed completely and utterly. It takes 2 wishes, one to create the body and another one to infuse the body with life again. Wish cannot prevent a character who was brought back to life from gaining a permanent negative level. It's a great way for Arcane Group to be able to revive another character. And it's not the only way that you can do it, but it's one of those things that it's a great way whenever you lose a party member at level 17, and like in my groups, you're going all the way to 20, you're going to be able to bring them back even if you don't have a divine caster. When it comes to damage spells for 9th level, Wail of the Banshee, I love it. It is Fortitude for negates, does use spell resistance, but I use this on my players quite a bit. In fact, this spell from Karzog in Rise of the Rune Lord, I believe, is what dropped 2 of our melee in that group. But you're looking at massive damage, so looking at least 170 points of damage, and there's no resistance for this. If they fail the fort save, then they take 170 points of damage, which my players are going to have to deal with. And like I said earlier, they've all got bad fort saves in this game. They're going to regret it. Summon Monster 9. Great spell. It's got big summons to it. Like I said, especially starting at Summon Monster 5. Everything after that, Summon Monster, is a fantastic pick. Not just if you're focusing on summoning, but it's just a good pick to be able to pull in that character with magical abilities, see invisibility, ability to purge invisibility, being able to heal, resurrect, cast damage, just be a temporary tank. It's great. Mage Disjunction, I had Karzog cast this twice on my party as soon as they popped in. And so it's one of those things that they hated me for, but it made the fight way more interesting. It's a spell that hits an area, all magical effects, magical items within a 40-foot burst radius, 1 minute a level for this location. All magical effects and magical items within the radius of the spell, except those that you carry or touch, are disjoined. That is, the spells and spell-like effects are unraveled and destroyed completely, ending the effects of dispel magic spells, and each permanent magic item must make a successful will save, or be turned into a normal item for the duration of the spell. An item in a creature's possession uses its own will save bonus, or its possessor's will bonus, whichever is higher. If an item's saving throw results in a natural 1 on the die, that item is destroyed instead of being just suppressed. So I don't remember how many times I had a few of these things die. Luckily, it was none of their main weapons, but we did lose a few really expensive magical items the last time that I threw this at my players. But, you know, it was the end of the campaign. Got to make it fun. Teleportation circle. It's a great way to set you up either a way to move a massive group to a designated spot. It's just going to be one of those mass teleportation things. Maybe you're evacuating a city. At this level, you're doing galactic level events. Maybe you have to get a city from one town to another, one continent to another, one plane. Tried and true meteor swarm. Meteor swarm is similar to fireball. It casts 4 2-foot diameter spheres springing from the outstretched hand and streaks in lines to the spots you select. The meteor spheres leave a fiery trail of sparks. If you aim a sphere at a specific creature, you may make a ranged touch attack to strike the creature with the meteor. Any creature struck by a sphere takes 2d6 bludgeoning damage, no save, and takes -4 penalty on the saving throw against the sphere's damage. If it misses, it simply explodes nearby and you have to go through normal rules. Once the sphere reaches the destination, it explodes. 40-foot radius, we've been there, dealing 66 points of fire damage to each creature in the area. Now, those can overlap. Despite separate spheres, all fire damage is added together after the save have been made and fire resistance is applied only once. I think they're really better when damage spells when it comes. It's one of those big area effect spells. It's also pretty iconic for players, so that's why it's pretty nice. But a total of 24d6 isn't too bad at level 17. And that is some of my picks for the Wizard's Arcane Spell list. Now, like I said, that's not going to be the best ones for every situation or for your build, but they're just ones as a GM you're going to commonly see. And if you're a player and you can't decide on which spells to pick, then taking one of those, you'll never go wrong. If you like this video, check out my others. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. If you have any tips or requests, drop them in the comments below. And until next time, may your crits be epic, your adventures legendary, and your gaming table filled with laughter.